Welcome in to the Fun Astrology Podcast. We're talking about Thursday, September 30th. We are closing out September, moving into October. Fall in the Northern Hemisphere is upon us. Thomas Miller, thanks for joining us. Glad you're here. You guys, it's touching whenever we do this kind of work and you put out there to a large group of people. You never know what comes back. And let's just take a moment and feel into the emotions of this next call that somebody left relative to yesterday's podcast.
Hi, Thomas. My name is Anne, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I just want to thank you for the podcast. I recently found it, and you've really expanded my knowledge because I get some astrology in daily. I had a question. I was just listening to your Wednesday podcast, and you were talking about Saturn, and you mentioned father, and instantly I got full body goosebumps. I actually lost my father on Sunday, and I just wanted to know, just more details on that. It's really interesting. So thank you so much for all you do, and have a great day.
And wow, what a message. Thank you for conveying that to us so that we can collectively put our arms around you and just give you a big group hug. And I know I speak for everybody that we are feeling that. I don't know how you did that without cracking up. When my dad died, which is over 20 years ago, I cried for 3 years. So I'm really touched about your message and about what's going on in your life right now. So thank you for sharing, first of all. Astrologically, yes, Saturn does archetype the father. Now, obviously with astrology, there are people who look into the chart and search for death paradigms in the chart. And, a lot of people shy away from death in general. It's a normal part of living, and it is represented in the chart in several places. The 8th house, Saturn itself, Scorpio, there are Pluto. There are several places where our chart reflects death. But what I do know is that a transit of one of those planets over one of those areas does not equal certain death. Now, my personal belief is that the soul has windows of opportunity to exit. So this is as much a soul-driven thing as it is a physical body-driven thing. The soul can just decide, I'm out of here. Or there might be a lesson that the soul came to help others through, and their death could be a catalyst for those other lessons. There's a book that I narrated for author Fred Dodson. I've talked about this a lot over in Subconscious Mind Mastery. It's called Lives of the Soul. And if you would pick that up and listen to it, it's a quick listen, and it was so transformative for me. And I think at this time it would be especially comforting for you. It talks about death from a soul perspective, especially what's happening even now over there on the other side. But astrologically, I would not give too much credence to a particular alignment, especially on the daily work that we do here. Like yesterday, we were talking about Saturn being in that big grand trine with Mars and this North Node and Saturn in trine aspects to each other. And, you have to look at the natal chart. You have to look at the progressions primarily. But I really stay away from trying to predict or analyze even a death because, to me, the soul has these option out cards that it can lay down at any given time. Now, what I would be using the chart to possibly look at are some karmic things, and we'll be talking about how to do this in the 101 course. But I would pretty much be looking at, is there something unresolved? Is there something that could be resolved even now? After my mom passed and she and I had a turbulent relationship, I had some words with her that I knew she was hearing. That was an effort to kind of clean up some karma that had not been able to be cleaned up. So yes, there are some ways that you could look at the natal chart, his chart, your chart, and the transits and see if there is something that is pointed out, that maybe there's something there for you to do. Absolutely, that is a great use of the astrological picture at the time of his death. We're sending love to you, and thank you very much for sharing that with us. Not much in the chart today, so we'll pretty well let this stand. And let's just send our love to Anne and her family, maybe reflecting on what we are all about, which is resolving karma. It's all about, I'm going to go back to Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are, say it with me, spiritual beings having a human experience. And at some point, for each one of us, that day will end just like it did for Anne's dad. And what we leave behind and what we've done in our soul is what will continue on forever. So Saturn even is about legacy. And a lot of that legacy can be what we choose to leave behind. Now, have you been outside? Let me switch over to some current astrology real quick. Have you been outside to check out Jupiter and Venus? They are in the east sky and west sky just after sunset in the northern hemisphere, and they are spectacular. Well, today they are in a square to each other, 90-degree square, and the moon moves into Leo. Both of these things happen tonight between 7:30 and 9 p.m. Venus-Jupiter is at 7:30. The moon into Leo is just before 9 p.m. There is a fairly long void, of course, today from 10:48 a.m. to 8:53 p.m. All these times, as always, Eastern U.S. time zone. It was kind of cool. I went out the other night, and both were up just above the horizon, and I held my arms out, one arm pointing over at Venus, the other pointing over at Jupiter, realizing that's a 90-degree square in the sky, and wondering what these two had in store as they were squaring off today. We're talking about the two most benefic planets in the chart, and we are talking about a square. And Jupiter, of course, is retrograde. One of the first places you would look at is relationships. So if something comes up, it could be that you're on the side of the expansion with Jupiter, or you could be on the side of the overindulgence, the over-exaggeration, the excessiveness. And as you look over to the right from Jupiter, you'll see Saturn faintly up in the sky as well. So here we are back to Saturn again, wondering, Lord Karma, what do you have to share in this story as it is observing Jupiter and Venus so brightly in the sky? Interesting picture, great picture. So we'll start that tonight, and then we have a Leo moon for the next couple of days. And as we set up tomorrow, TGI Friday, we'll be talking about a couple of aspects over the weekend involving Mercury. Yes, retrograde Mercury. That will be tomorrow. See you back. Thanks for sharing this, and send Anne and her family some love as well. Thank you so much. Have a great Thursday. Talk to you tomorrow.